Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. The first item will be an evacuation procedure that we'll read. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by the way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of any emergency vehicles. Okay, the next item will be roll call.
Chesney,
Here.
Damrow,
Here.
Everett,
Here.
Hedrick,
Here.
Brian King.
Okay. And Thomas and Marlene are here. Okay, the first item is the minutes of the last meeting. You all have copies of that. Are there any corrections, or do you want to approve it as written?
Move we approve as written.
Bruce made the motions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Joe, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, passed unanimously. If you haven't been to one of our meetings before, we'd like to briefly explain the process. We'll go through the agenda unless one of the members of our committee wants to change the order. Thomas will read a very brief review of that item, and then anyone here in favor of that request will come forward and at the podium and the microphone and explain why they are requesting this variance. And then we'll give an opportunity for anyone to speak who is opposed to that request. And then the board members will discuss that, and then we'll make a motion to either approve or reject the request. So, Thomas, anything you have before we start? Members, anything before we start? Okay, the first one is a request by Lisa Ketro. Okay, Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, this applicant has requested a variance approximately 8 feet from the front yard setback in the district for a single-family residence, and it's currently under construction. The hardship that's presented is steep topography. In fact, the rear, probably 2/3 of the property drops off significantly, so they've had it engineered. And even with pulling it forward, there's still 12 to 14 feet foundation walls in the rear. Add into that the steep topography and the shallowness of the lot and the area required for on-site waste disposal. They're not left with a lot of buildable area. I do want to call your attention to something that I put in the report, which at the time I didn't have any other data, but I spoke with the surveyor of record, Mr. Kevin Pitts, today, and I had put in there, and this was based on my review of the county GIS records and the aerial photography. And when you look at the aerials in our GIS, they're actually skewed from reality. And when I was looking at it, it looks like the pavement is pushed all the way over in the right-of-way, but in fact it's actually centered in the right-of-way. I don't think that really has any bearing on this case. It was just an extra piece of information that I put in there. So I would have you just disregard what I put in there about the pavement being moved over in the right-of-way because it isn't. Just focus on the topographical issues and the shallowness of the lot. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of me, sir.
Anyone here in favor of this request? Tell us your name, please.
Lisa Ketron.
Okay, Lisa.
Pardon me?
Anything you want to add to what Thomas has presented?
Pretty much everything that he said.
Any questions for Lisa? The lot is very steep. Lisa, you're on the cul-de-sac. Is there plans to extend the cul-de-sac for additional homes down the street?
I think I can answer that, sir. And actually, I should have included this as well, if you want to pass this down. It's kind of confusing because it is actually a cul-de-sac. And the cul-de-sac and the right-of-way in front of their house, you know, that part of Spencer Drive to the end of the cul-de-sac is dedicated as public right-of-way. That's county-maintained road. Well, then off of that, on the end of it, it actually looks like the road keeps on going.
It does.
And what I handed you there, if you look at the orange part that goes all the way down, those were all exempt lots. So they're all 5 acre or larger tracts. So that part that's in orange is actually a private driveway. So it looks like the road, and it continues there, and it's kind of confusing because it looks like the road is just bubbled out into a cul-de-sac, but that part is actually a driveway. So that's privately owned, privately maintained. In theory, they could put a gate on the end of it if they wanted to. So,
But if it wasn't for the cul-de-sac and that was a straight road down through there, then she wouldn't have a problem.
that's right. And but that cul-de-sac is dedicated public right of way. So it's ours, and we're not going to give it back. So yes, sir.
So it's because it's cul-de-sac.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So it is in actuality a cul-de-sac. It looks like a cul-de-sac. It does have the round right-of-way dedication, which is causing the setback issue, but it doesn't necessarily function as one because that driveway continues out the other end of it and serves a bunch more houses.
Any questions for Lisa? Anyone here opposed to this request? Discussion? Members?
I move we grant.
Have a motion to grant. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Stanley seconds. A yes means we approve.
Must we vote?
Oh, sorry. Damrow,
Yes.
Everett,
Yes.
Hedrick,
Yes.
Chesney.
Yes. It's approved.
Thank you.
Good luck. Okay. The next one is a request by Stacy Hill for a variance on a deck on Birdwell Drive.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. So another variance, but this one's a little different circumstances. So this is actually a request for a deck that was built, as best the applicant can tell, 5-6 years ago, maybe longer. And it was constructed without a permit. Now, she hired the contractor to build the deck, and he built it. And we didn't, and no one applied for a permit. We didn't know anything about it. And so this came to our attention by way of a complaint. Once our inspector went out and looked at it, and he noticed that there was a possibility of a setback issue. Structurally, it looks pretty good shape, and we're pretty confident that we'll be able to permit it, under building code. However, there was the issue of an encroachment or possible encroachment. So I asked the applicant to provide a survey, to get an as-built survey and provide it to us, which she did, and that's included in your packet. And it doesn't encroach into the neighboring property, but boy, is it close. And actually, at its closest point, it's a little over 6 inches from the corner. So that being said, that you do have an interesting situation as far as the configuration of the lot. It's the only one in the area that's what you'd call maybe a pie-shaped lot, and it only has 3 sides. If you want to take that into consideration. But the setbacks at the time that the deck was constructed, as far as we can tell, would have been those that are enforced today, which is 10 feet. There are a few exceptions to that rule. We always talk about variances. There are a few exceptions. If the structure, for example, was less than 30 inches in height, it's exempted from setbacks. This isn't, however. This is a very tall deck. So that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Anyone here in favor of this request? Okay.
I guess my son is too. Hi, I'm Stacy Hill. When I built the deck, I didn't know about a permit, and I did not know about what a setback was or anything like that, or I wouldn't have done it because I don't want the stress in my life. And that's all really. I've been going through some hardships, but I've been sick, just got over cancer, so when I built the deck, I was more financially stable than I am now. If it was a low to the ground deck, it wouldn't necessarily be as scary to me, but it being so tall, and I've talked to people about cutting it, if I have to cut it back and everything, and they're like, it's gonna be really hard. So I took the steps. I had someone come out and do a report on it being safe, and and they said if you get to keep it, and if you have to get the permit, or of course I have to get the permit, but like, here's what you need to do in this, and I agree to do everything that I'm supposed to, but this was not an intentional, I just don't care about the law kind of thing. I had no clue.
Any questions for Stacy? So the issue is, if it was at ground level, it would be okay.
That's right. If it were a ground level deck or 30 inches is what our zoning regulations say, it can extend into the setbacks.
So, but the issue is, it's high, it's right on the property line,
Yes,
and have, from that elevation, have a direct view into the neighbor's house. Okay, there's two pink flags. If you look at the house on the right-hand side, property line, there's two pink flags there. What are they?
Those were set by the
It
survey.
actually has a 6-foot privacy fence around it. That's the only thing, I can't see my neighbors at all. Used to, we could see in each other's houses before the deck was built.
Is there any purpose for the two pink flags in the right side?
Oh, that's where I got my survey of my land. That's what that's in there for, because I had to pay to get a survey. So that's what the flags are for, where he left them, where he did my survey. But yes, before the deck was built, we could actually see in each other's houses. Now we can't see in each other's houses. In fact, my lot, it's a 3-sided lot, so it sounds like it's this big, huge deck, but really I don't have a backyard.
How tall is the deck?
I have a split for your house, so it just goes off of my original deck. It's just, my original deck was a sunroom, and it's all been opened up, and then I had an uncovered deck built onto it with a privacy fence, so that way, that's the only privacy we have in our yard, is the deck.
But how high is
Okay, so like if you were on a second level of a,
Well, from ground?
Would you
It's
say it's
16
approximately 10?
16 foot high?
Is it 16?
16.
16?
16.
No, sir. I believe it to be about 10.
10.
It's on the second floor of the house.
I think when I measured a leg, it was 8 foot, when I measured a leg. And it's exactly level with my other deck.
So, and you have a privacy fence
Around it, yes, I cannot see my neighbors.
around the deck?
Yes. I have a 4-foot one in the front that faces like where there's not a house, and then around it the other way, I have a 6-foot privacy fence. In fact, I think there's some pictures if,
No, there wasn't.
I don't have those.
oh,
Those are
okay.
with the inspector.
I gave them to the inspector, yeah. And he found like a couple things that he said. He said that he would want me to do another bracket into my house, which is actually for my old deck, and another support beam under 2 pieces of wood that go together. He'd want another one there. And other than that, like it's extra safe, but it's like 16 inches apart. They want this wood, but mine's 14 inches apart. So like mine's even more, according to like what you can get away with, mine's safer than what the standards are.
Can you walk under the deck?
Yes.
So if somebody had to go back to the back end, they could walk under the deck and...
Yeah, it's the bottom of the deck's I had a pool back there, and it's all concrete. And my issue, get down from there. My issue is, so we've opened up the sunroom to go out to this deck, so if I was to tear it down, it's just a big open hole. And I know that's me just being like, here's my problems, but I promise I did not know. I honestly thought you had to live in one of those neighborhoods that, what's it called? They have all those rules in the neighborhoods. That's what I thought you had to live in a neighborhood like that in order for, things like this to happen.
If she had applied for a permit when she built it, she would have had to meet a 10-foot setback.
That's correct.
So she and her builder both, neither.
Correct.
I mean, there's two parties there.
Yes, sir.
Who built your deck?
His name was Jamie Nelson. In fact, after he didn't finish, like, he was supposed to put it, we're not in contact anymore. He ran off on me. So,
When you look at it, it looks like it's right on the property line. I mean, 6 inches, it looks like.
Have you asked for those opposed?
Not yet. You ready? Anyone here opposed to this request? You received a complaint. You want to share that with us?
I actually don't have a copy of the complaint. It went through the building department, so it wasn't a formal written complaint. It was a complaint by phone. And that's what precipitated the inspection from the inspector going out and checking on it. And then he saw, saw the concern with the property line, and we sort of worked backwards from there.
This is a question. There's no additional covenants in that subdivision other than the county covenants?
Not to my knowledge, sir, but we don't typically review those, nor do we enforce them at all. So I'm not familiar with any, but that normally wouldn't be in our purview to review those.
Was the complaint anonymous, or was there a name plate? I'm not asking for the name.
Yes, sir. I believe it was anonymous to begin with, but then I believe that we do actually know who made the complaint. And without it being written, I'm hesitant to share that, especially since there's no one here to speak to that fact.
Would it, based on the map that you gave us, is it correct to assume that the county owns property on one side of the lot and there's one owner on the other side of the lot?
That's correct, sir.
You know, this is a little different. If it was a ground level deck, that's one thing. This is up in the air. But I don't think we've ever approved a lot line type deal. This is basically to the lot line.
Right.
Well, is the existing structure there, the pool, it looks like that one corner of the pool is actually pretty close, probably within the setback.
And it actually can be, because again, a pool is less than 30 inches. So there's no problem with any of the flat work or the hard surfaces or the pool or any of that stuff. That's all in compliance. The issue is this, the deck over. Yeah.
So if you have a pool close, you can put a fence around the pool.
You can. And a fence is exempted from setbacks as well. It can be right on the property
But it's
line.
the elevation of the deck is the issue,
Yes, sir.
and the location of the deck.
Correct.
They've made good use of their lot as far as using what space they've got. But still, we got some other property rights too there, which we got to consider. And it's up in the air. That's the kicker.
Stacy, have you received an estimate to meet the 10-foot setback?
no, when I talked to the man that was, expecting it, he just said it's not going to be an easy job. I mean, it actually would be me doing it.
If you had to remove it, would you basically be removing the whole deck?
If I had to remove it, honestly, I'd be the one trying to do it because I don't have the funds to hire a person to do it. So, I guess is what I would have to do is start taking the fence down and then probably try to cut the boards. I don't know. But when I built the deck, the owners that are in the house, there's only one house beside me. And I knocked on the door and I said, because I didn't know about any of this setback stuff. But the guy building it said that the end that everybody's talking about where it's real close to the property line, he was like, hey, you need to go over there and tell him that it's gonna be like this close or whatever. So I had a friend with me. I went over there and knocked on his door and he came and I said, hey, yeah, like it's gonna be like this. And I remember he was like, okay. And then my friend laughed because I was supposed to be like this, but I was like this. And then all these years it's been fine. And then I just learned about the Department of Building people about 3 months ago.
Do you think that was the person that complained?
I only have one neighbor over there. This is my neighbor too, Noble, and my other neighbors are fine with it. And I have one neighbor, but I didn't think so because I talked to him about it and it was a slow process to get the deck up. So I didn't think it was him, but now I do.
Is this the first complaint you've had?
Yeah. Yeah.
And your neighbor's not complaining?
No, not all of them. I guess one did. So I'm assuming.
The one right next to you.
Oh no, he's my neighbor, but we get along great. He's just here for support.
So he's the one that's the adjoining neighbor?
No, he lives across the street. He just came because of the sign in my yard to support me. So, yeah. So, no, I don't think my neighbor that lives beside me, I don't really know them very well, but I don't think they're here.
Your name, please?
And Noble Carper. I live at
Noble Carpenter?
Yeah, Carper, C-A-R-P-E-R. I live directly across the street from her. Yeah, C-A-R-P, P is in Paul, E-R. And I've had a little trouble hearing. I have a hearing problem, and you guys sometimes are behind your monitors, and I can't read your lips either. So, in fact, I couldn't even hear her. I'm sorry about that. But if you want to, of course, I couldn't hear everything about the details of this thing. I've been to her house. I think I took some tomatoes over a couple of years ago, and right after she finished the deck. But I really wasn't paying that much attention. The only thing I do know that it's pretty private, pretty, I can't see where it really, interferes with the neighbors on the other side of her. But again, I have not spent that much time over there to know actually where her property line is or anything like that. But she is a good neighbor, I do know that. And so I apologize for not being able to, have more insight and not being able to hear that well. But
Mr. Lloyd, what if we don't approve it and she don't do nothing?
She would be in violation of building code.
And what does that mean?
Well, ultimately, unfortunately, our recourse would be through the county attorney, and we'd have to go through, probably go through court. And the county has the ability to sue over building code and zoning
Yes,
code
but
issues.
would you enforce it? Or
I think since it's been brought to our attention, we have to enforce it. Since it's on the books and it is a known
so if it hadn't been on the
violation.
books, you're okay?
It has been for 6 years. We didn't know about it.
Yeah, but if nobody had complained and it was not within code,
So,
it would just, even though it wasn't on the books, nothing would happen.
and frankly, that happens a lot. We can't be everywhere in the county at all times. So there are a lot of things that happen we don't know about. But once it's been brought to our attention and once it's been inspected, we are obligated to make sure that the code is being enforced, because yes, it is a possible, property rights issue since is that not actually infringing into the next property, but we do have regulations that says it has to be so far apart. The real issue is that it is an unpermitted structure, so therefore, it may or may not be safe. So if somebody got out on the deck crumbles, falls, hurts somebody, the county knew about the deck, but had not issued a permit, then the county, I think, shares a little bit of that liability because we know about it and we haven't issued a building permit for it.
So is this more of an issue about setbacks or building permits?
Well, one leads to the other.
Together,
For what you all are concerned, it's the setbacks. We can't issue a building permit unless the zoning can be approved. And the zoning can't be approved unless there's a variance to the setbacks. We can't give her a building permit that's in violation of the zoning regulations.
Let me follow up on that. Are you saying that now that we know it, and there hasn't been a building permit, and something happens, then we're part of the problem?
That's a matter of interpretation, sir. I don't think you as this board are a part of the problem, no, sir.
May I say something? May I say something?
Sure.
I did go ahead and get it inspected, so that wouldn't be an issue here. That it shows in the report it's very safe. Everything's up to code. I have the things underneath the beams that are sucked into the concrete. It was a $10,000 deck before I was poor. So, I mean, everything is up to, I mean, it's in the report. I had somebody come out and actually inspect it. What was his name? Real nice guy. You gave me his number.
From our department?
Yeah.
That was Jeff Chapman.
Yes, I had him write up a report, look at it, take him up, show him everything.
Question, as much for you gentlemen. If you're required to make some alterations to that deck to come at least closer to compliance with our zoning regulations, what would be the possibility, or your inclination even, to having someone look at it and recommend what alterations could be made to it that would be as inexpensive to you as possible and get you closer into compliance? Do you see where I'm going?
Yes.
Okay, and how long would it take you to possibly report back to us with that?
Well, if it's a height issue, then I can take the boards off myself and saw them down.
It's not, well, you would have to take it from 16 feet to less than 30 inches. Or 10 feet to less than 30 inches, so essentially you're going to tear it down.
Honestly, I don't know how I would pay for that, to have somebody come out. It's because of, I guess, how it's built, because how my lot is, it's built funny.
I
So-
can
Yeah,
tell
so-
exactly what your issue is. Where I'm going is, it might be based on the way that it's constructed, there might be a possibility for you to get more or closer to our 10-foot setback line that would give us the opportunity perhaps to give you a variance that would be a whole lot less expensive to yourself than saying, no, you've got to cut it back a minimum of to where you have a 10-foot
Well,
setback.
when-
And I need to be sure that staff is following along with what I'm saying, and that is a possibility to come back at a later date.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. If this board recommends that she go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and provide you all with some options. So this is as built is what you have. So if you were going to approve this, you're giving her a variance down to 6 inches. Now, if I understand you correctly, you want her to come back maybe with some different options. Here's one where I split the difference, say, and it's 5 feet. We pull it back to 5 feet. Or here's an option where it's 10 feet. Or here's an option where the thing's taken completely down and then it's not an issue anymore.
I think what I'm saying is I think you can probably obtain a building permit, which solves part of your issue. But you're not going to be able to obtain that permit until we can come up with something here, come up with a plan for you to proceed with that gives us the latitude to be able to grant your request.
The guy that came to my house and looked at it said it's actually from the beam. So like my deck could hang over 3 foot from a beam. So even if my deck's over here, the variance goes from where my post is.
That's not correct.
3 foot, huh? That's not true?
No. The setback's measured from the furthest overhang. So if you have like a eave on your house or a drip line, that's where, so it's a plane, like football, close, you know, it's the plane.
In other words, if you could put a cantilever system up there 5 feet back from the property line and cantilever the deck on out, we would be dealing with a 5-foot setback.
He just
Except
said-
that's not correct.
That's not,
Oh,
That's-
he
that's not
just said
correct.
that's not correct.
That's not correct, sir.
it goes from the edge.
The setback is from the furthest extent that the structure extends. It's not from the post.
Well, that's different from what it used to be. It used to be where it contacts the ground.
Yeah, but Stanley, if you did that, she could cantilever on somebody else's property.
Then they got a problem with the property owner then on the next side. When did they change it to where it's overhang?
Well, it has to. It's like the roof overhang.
I know, but
You can't
that's-
overhang your roof on
It's
somebody
just-
else's property.
Well, no, we've done some, just like up on the river at Townsend, they built a building there so far to the road, too close to the road, and they can't do that, you gotta tear it down. No, so what they did is they come in and cut it back and cantilevered to where the contact to the ground was back okay. Anyway, that's odd, I thought it was
No, sir.
contact, okay. I stand to be corrected.
So I guess what Joe's recommending is for you to look at some options to where we can work with you.
Okay.
Yes,
That's the
try to come up with something, because as it sits right now, it's really difficult for us to move to that position where you have a zero.
Would you suggest 5 feet setback?
That's a lot easier to cut to permit, because we
And we've done
permitted,
5.
we permitted that in other areas in the county, so.
So, everybody's comfortable with me doing it? I'm not a construction person, but I can watch YouTube. I mean, I have a saw and everything, and
I would be open to a 5-foot setback.
I would too.
So if I may, what you're talking about is you actually doing the construction, which this board doesn't care if Mickey Mouse does it. It doesn't matter. That's a matter of your building permit and making sure that on your permit you've listed yourself as the contractor and that you're getting your inspections. Okay. So I think what this board's saying is they're not comfortable granting a variance to 0 feet or 6 inches. But they may be inclined to grant you a variance of 5 feet, which means you'd have all of the deck that is within 5 feet of the property line would have to go away. And your building permit would need to reflect that, and it would need to be inspected as such. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Stacy,
Okay.
there may be a neighbor across the street that could help you named Carper.
I'm sorry, what's that?
There may be a neighbor across the street named Carper that could help you.
Oh, I wouldn't do that to him. This has been stressful enough for myself, thank you.
Don't do anything until you get
Right.
your estimate, yeah,
My what?
until you get an estimate of what it costs. Don't just get the estimates, okay?
So you guys want me to, each post needs to be 5 foot from the fence, correct?
The entire
My
structure.
fence is my property line.
The entire deck,
The whole deck.
the entire face of the structure of the deck, no closer than.
So is somebody gonna come out and show me, like, are they gonna come out and be like,
So,
here's?
let me back up a little bit. Okay, if this board is comfortable with 5 feet, you can grant the variance tonight to 5 feet. Now, whether or not she can come into compliance with that and get the building permit issued and inspected doesn't really matter to y'all. What you're looking at is the variance, and if you're comfortable with the 5-foot variance, you can grant that tonight, and then she has sort of the marching orders of what she can operate under as far as trying to obtain the permit.
I'd make a motion that we grant her 5-foot variance.
Okay, we have a motion to grant Stacy a 5-foot variance.
Second?
We have a second from Bruce. So a vote, yes, grants her a 5-foot setback approval, and then she needs to work with the building permit folks to work out how she has to structurally do that. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Roll, okay.
Damrell,
Yes.
Everett,
Yes.
Hedrick,
Yes.
Chesney.
Yes. Okay, now Stacy, do you understand where we are?
Yes, I need to pull it back from 5 feet from the,
At least 5 feet. If there's something else that works better for you, but as long as it's at least 5 feet.
okay, and I guess I'll be at your office again.
Yes, yeah, come to my office and we can figure it out. So if you can figure out a way to make that work, fine, but we still have to get the issue resolved on the construction side. You're done with these guys.
Okay, so I guess I'll be coming in to see you.
Okay.
I was going to say, I moved in that neighborhood in 1995. And of course, at that time, we had a neighborhood association. And so we sort of kept each other abreast on the regulations and stuff. And somehow, I don't know what happened to the neighborhood association. They went bye-bye. But, I mean, there was a lot of things in the county code that we kept on top of, you know. And so, but I appreciate what you're doing here. And thanks for letting that deaf mute talk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, that's a good suggestion. Good compromise, thank you. Okay, the next item is a request for Maryville Hall Apartments on Middle Settlements Road.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me get into this. Excuse me just a moment. Okay, so the applicants are proposing a 92-unit multifamily complex on the subject property. It is in Alcoa's planning region, and Alcoa approved the subdivision plat, subdividing about 15 acres from the parent parcel, the larger tract. That plat's been recorded, approved. They also went through the process with the city of Alcoa for annexation, really with just the intent of having Alcoa say no so they could provide them with public utilities, which they've agreed to. So it does still fall, it's not in the city of Alcoa, although Alcoa will be providing utilities. It's purely ours for zoning perspective, falls under our jurisdiction. In this district, the suburbanizing district, this doesn't rise to that level of a high-density multifamily that, actually the last multifamily project we did was a high-density one. If you remember, those can only be on certain highway corridors. They have to have the 2 driveways. They have to have all this other stuff. This is right at the density where it doesn't go beyond to where it's considered high density, mainly because of because of the number of units, because of the amount of land they are using for the property. So this falls into the regular, I'll call it the regular multifamily part of our regulations, which are allowed in all of the suburbanizing districts. So it doesn't have to be in specific corridors. It can be anywhere in suburbanizing, so long as there's an approved special exception from this board. So what we did is we took the site plan through. This was actually the first project that fell into our new review procedure, where we review the site plans internally with our development review team, which includes zoning, planning, stormwater. Environmental health wasn't involved with this one because it is served by public utilities. The highway department, county engineer, we all sat around the table and worked through some issues on the site plan. The revised site plan was then given to us, which is what you all have been provided. It meets all of our technical specs, if you want to look at it that way. It meets all the zoning criteria, all the different things that multifamily is supposed to abide by. The site plan is in compliance with that. So from your perspective, it is the site plan is turnkey. No issues there. You're going to be looking at it just on the use and its impact. So, the typical findings of fact that you need to make to be able to approve a special exception. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of me.
I'm not sure I'm clear on what the problem is. Where is it that they're not in compliance with what they need to be?
It's not that they're not in compliance, it's that this is a special exception. So a special exception is a discretionary approval from this board. There's several different uses within the code that are called out that can't be approved at a staff level It has to be weighed on its own merits by this board and then approved accordingly. So it's a special exception, not a variance.
My GPS took me to the 1314 address.
That's the house. This
The house
property
and
would
the
be
driveway.
right at the intersection where the traffic light is. You see where the pavement stubs out?
Yeah.
This would be right there.
But the reason I'm asking, I didn't see your sign, but I saw the address. So from their driveway, is it further away from Lowe's or closer?
The driveway would be to the west of this location.
So if you're driving out Middle Selmas Road away from Lowe's, and the
Yes.
driveway's there, it's beyond it?
The driveway would be beyond this project. This
So it's
project is
closer-
in the intersection.
It's closer to town.
Yes. This project would be in the intersection where the traffic light is. And that's where the sign's located.
And there's all kinds of apartments across the street.
Yes, sir.
I mean, bunches.
Yes, sir.
So it's not, okay.
And the special exception, this property is zoned for single-family residential, and the special exception would be to build multifamily dwellings on it.
Correct. Multifamily use is allowed as a special exception in this district.
I mean, so this does nothing to bring any negative connotations to the area, because the whole area, the area adjacent to it or across the street is very similar to what this proposal is,
There are similar land uses in the vicinity, yes, sir.
across the street, right?
Yes, sir. And it's interesting because it falls right in between a bunch of different jurisdictions. You have Maryville across the street. Those apartments are actually Maryville. This side is in Alcoa's growth boundary, so in theory, Alcoa could have annexed it if they'd wanted to. So it's kind of it's a little island in between now with our zone.
Okay. So what this owner's doing is taking a piece of his farm and putting on a project.
Yes, sir. The owner, the Owsleys, have subdivided a portion of the farm, and the development group has it under contract to develop it with apartments.
Okay. Anyone here in favor of this request?
Yes, Benjamin Mullins.
I'm sorry, your name?
Benjamin Mullins. I'm an attorney.
Benjamin Mullins?
Yes, sir. I'm an attorney in Knoxville. I'm here for Mr. Owsley, who owns the farm, and I think Mr. Lloyd's done a good job kind of explaining the process. It's been a long process going through the approvals with both Alcoa and the county. We appreciate the new process of being able to go through the old site plan and seeing what your comments were, and then having a chance to. I've not seen the revised plat for the apartments. I spoke to Mr. Mullen today and said that he got everything to you and that all the comments were addressed and everything was in compliance. As a special exception, it's an allowed use if we meet all those requirements and there's no other negative impacts to the community that would otherwise affect this, and it doesn't sound like there is. So, on behalf of Mr. Owsley, we just ask that this be approved.
And just for the record, it is in the staff report. There was a traffic study provided as part of this project. We requested one and got it. And I put the summary of the traffic study, so its recommendations in there. And the county engineer has reviewed that and concurs with the findings.
Any questions for Mr. Mullins? Anyone here opposed to this request? Okay, discussion?
With all these new multifamily dwellings going in, where are the people coming from to move in?
I wish I had an answer to that for you, Mr. Hedrick. if there wasn't a market for it, then they wouldn't be developing this type of property this way, and we wouldn't have a need for the zone. But I don't have an answer for you on that. I wish I did.
They like our personalities.
Yeah. I didn't know if it's in preparation for jobs to come, or is if there's a need.
I'm sure the apartment, Mr. Gentry, you want to address that? Can you address it?
My name's Rick Gentry.
Rick Gentry.
Yes, sir. I think it's the industrial expansion that's going on around Robert C. Jackson with Denso, and I think there's a gunpowder place coming in, and this is workforce housing. This is specifically for workers. I've been doing apartment development for 20 years, and you can't have industry coming in without a place for them to live. And I've got a place in Coffee County right now. We're doing the same thing.
What range are they?
They've got to be below 60% of the mean income of Blount County. The people that live there. So I mean, these are actually people that are going to work on Robert C. Jackson.
60%
of the
median income
in
is
Blount
what?
County. If you're over that, you can't live in it.
Is that right?
So it's workforce housing is what it is.
So what's that?
So it's restricted? That's what I thought I heard, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's restricted. You can't make over 60% of the mean income in Blount County.
But you can't
live
make
there.
less.
You make less, yes. And if you meet the requirements and you move in, and all of a sudden you start making more money, you can stay. So it doesn't hurt you if you're more successful.
And I think it's important for you to mention that this is not a HUD project. This is an IRS tax credit project.
No, this is a low-income tax housing credits that Tennessee Housing Development Agency gives out.
Is it government subsidized housing?
No, not at all. They pay the rents. They do criminal background checks. They do unbelievable amount of checks, and people don't want to get kicked out of these things because they're beautiful apartments.
Yeah.
And the Tennessee Housing Development Agency gives the developer money to build these, and it's true workforce housing. There's no subsidies whatsoever.
So who's getting the tax credit?
The developer.
The developer.
Developer is-
Yeah.
So the developer gets a tax credit if he limits who moves in.
He can't, the only way he can limit it is if they're over 60% of the mean
Right.
income of Blount County. That's the only way.
But you have to meet that criteria to be
Yes.
able to move in. And if he does that, then he gets a tax credit for building that kind of low-income housing.
Well, he gets tax credits over a 10-year period, and it's already built, and
Yeah.
he's got to make sure he can fill it up with working-class people, and I'm talking about people on Robert C. Jackson. I don't know how much nurses make around here, school teachers.
What is the median income of Blount County?
I think it's around 55,000. I haven't checked.
Councilman?
So 60% you'd have to make. I'm not positive about that. But
Okay.
It used to be 33 hours a year.
What's the average rental price for an apartment in that complex?
I don't really know that because I'm not the developer. I've just, on this particular project, I assisted him in going through the process. But I'm probably $550 for a 2-bedroom apartment. They'll be 1,500 square feet. They're very nice.
So all of them's rentals, not for sale. They're all rental.
They're all rentals.
And with these, this is the same incentive program. The last apartments that we did at the first of the year were the same deal. And even during the economic downturn, these kind of projects continued to sort of churn along. But the developer has to also assure the maintenance of the property for, I believe, a 20-year period. And it's regularly inspected. Again, it's not a HUD project, but it actually falls under the purview of the IRS because there's taxes involved.
Right.
And in a previous life, I've worked on a few of these projects, and they have very strict maintenance things. And to your point, they can't subdivide it. They can't condo it out. They can't sell off units or anything until that has sunset, that 20-year maintenance period.
Do rental rates vary depending on what their incomes are? Or rental rates are set, period?
Rental rates are set.
Okay. Around 585.
I think the 2 bedrooms are 550, I believe.
And if you make more than that, you can't rent.
Can't rent them if you're over 60.
Can senior citizens rent them?
Yeah.
Did you want 2 or 3 bedrooms?
There's no sections to the people that live in there.
That's interesting, because now all those homes behind Lowe's, it's the same type deal, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I don't know, yeah.
I believe that. Yes, sir.
But this developer's Gary Hall out of Dothan, Alabama. He owns about 5,000 units. So,
Complexes or apartments?
apartments.
Apartments. 5,000 complexes. So that, all that behind Lowe's is the same deal?
Same type deal, yeah.
You have to make 60% of 55,000 or below.
If
So
that's
you
the
have to
mean
make
income.
$30,000 or less.
If that's the mean income, I haven't looked it up in a long time. I believe that's what it is, so.
Order of magnitude. Okay, guys, now enough for the education. Does this count as training?
But we'll look at it.
All in favor of counting this hour as training? I'm sorry.
I only need 15 minutes, I think we did okay.
Okay, any other questions? Did I ask if anybody's opposed to this? Did I ask that? Okay, and nobody said that. Okay, thank you. Okay, guys.
Let me ask one more. Is this workforce? It's workforce housing for you can't make over 60% of the median income of Blount County, is that what it is?
That's correct.
Over 6, so if a median income is 55,000, that'd be, you can't make over 33,000.
Right.
I don't think the median income, is it that high in Blount County?
I haven't looked at it in a long time. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's 60% of those.
Well, that's good to know, because that's good to know.
Are you coming in next week with a proposal? That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, I'm ready for a motion.
Motion approved.
Got a motion approved. Joe and Bruce. That's all right.
Okay. Damrow. Yes. Everett.
Yes.
Hedrick. Chesney.
Yes. Okay, good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Okay, the next one is a request by Tim McConnell for a special acceptance for a storage facility, which has been here before, and this is a revision, correct?
That is correct, sir. And so the revision, if you look at the attachments, I'm sorry, if you go to your attachments, you can see what was approved in this December or January. It was right as John, so I guess it was December because John did. But you can see what was approved, and it was just on the long lot there, everything pushed to the back. Since then, the opportunity's come up for Mr. McConnell to purchase the property next door. So the revised plan, instead of going back into the back where there were some drainage concerns and some topographical issues back there, instead of going that way, he'd be able to go out along William Blount. And so you're losing a building out the back, but adding it back to the side along with 3 others. So he's able to increase the square footage. But staff, as with the last project, staff reviewed this in-house on the site plan, and I think it's actually a more manageable site plan. I think it actually works. Frankly, I think it works better than the other one did as far as the engineering of it and stormwater concerns and the flow of the site as far as getting traffic around it. We requested some additional landscaping and fencing materials, which they have included in the final plan that you have before you. So it is in compliance with all the regulations in the zoning regulations, I'm sorry. So as with the last one, this is a special exception. They're not asking for any deviations from the code. It's just that this board has to approve it, and since you have already approved the other site plan, I see the appropriate way to do this is to revise the approved special exception to include this additional piece of property in this different configuration.
Okay, if you face where it was,
Yes,
he's
sir.
moving to the left.
Yeah, so it will still be where it was and to the left. Yes, sir.
And this, seemed like there was an issue with some lady with a driveway before. Was that to the right of this?
That was to the right, and that actually got resolved before you all approved the other one. The original driveway configuration was going to share an easement, and that was worked out to where that wouldn't happen, and so that's how you all were able to approve it in the first place.
But that's still a non-issue.
Still a non-issue, sir, yes.
Okay, anybody here in favor of this?
My name is Derek Jones.
Derek Jones.
Derek, yes, sir. I'm with Sterling Engineering.
Anything you want to add to what?
I don't think so. I think Thomas did a pretty good job. Basically, the opportunity came up for Mr. McConnell to purchase as additional property. Basically, the gist of it is developing the part in the back was extremely expensive because there was a tremendous amount of dirt moving that was going to have to happen, and there's a lot of drainage comes down through there that in our detention design we had some pretty big concrete pipes that he was going to have to put in. So this property became available, and it made sense to kind of shift that rear development area back up to the front where we could minimize a little of that. Pretty much the front part of the site that you'd originally approved stayed the same, the driveway and all of that, and we just basically moved the rear development over to the side.
Any questions for Derek? Anyone here opposed to this request? Okay, discussion, guys. I hear a motion, Stanley made a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Joe, second.
Damrow.
Yes.
Everett.
Yes.
Hedrick. Chesney.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items to come before us tonight, guys?
Little training course online, we sent a certificate that everybody, you get that okay?
I did.
You know what, that test I took, does it give you the score of the test you took?
I think it's just pass fail.
You wanted that under I love me wall, didn't you?
Did Danny get a P or an F?
I think, yes, I did get yours.
You did?
Did you take it?
I got
No,
some.
wait a minute, I thought
I got something. But if not, I will let you know. No, I did not. When I start calculating my hours,
You have to have 4, yes, sir. It was 3 3/4. You need 15 minutes. We can come up with 15 minutes. When we get to the end of the year, we'll come up with something for 15 minutes.
I signed up to go listen about what happened to Atlanta, or not, just falling into Atlanta.
Yeah, next week on the green belt or whatever they call it. Yes, sir.
This was interesting though.
It is.
I heard different stories, but I didn't know how it worked. That's it.
But that gives you some idea of why all these apartments are, I mean, that's a
You
place.
can't make over, because median income's
we came with medium income of 46,000.
Yeah, you can't make over $27,000 to get a house, so.
No, it's per person,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, per person.
Not per household.
not household, that'd be two.
It's a sliding scale. I think that's for a single person, and I think it graduates as the additional people you add in the household. But you know, for what it's worth, and the way it was always told me, you know, that's your government employees and your cops and your teachers and stuff. So it is for working folks, and there's a bottom range to that too. It's for median income. So he didn't necessarily explain that, but I think it's a 40 to 60%, if I remember correctly. So you can't make below a certain number because you have to be able to pay. You have to be working or have income, you know, through Social Security or whatever. So
If he's accurate, a 2-bedroom that's 1,500 square feet?
For 550?
For 550? That's a lot of square feet for a 2-bedroom apartment.
they are large footprints. I think I put floor plans in here. Maybe I did.
They are, just like.
I didn't see the floor plan. Yes, it is. It's very good when you're looking at 7 to 9 to 11 in a lot of places in Blount County.
You know, you wonder what the restrictions or requirements are, you have to be an American citizen, things like that.
Yeah, that could probably come into play real quick in that price range.
And again, I mean, not to go too far off topic here, but in my previous employment over in North Carolina, it was in a very affluent community. The median income was almost $80,000. Okay, and there was a real need for this type of housing because your average home price was, you know, $300,000 or $400,000, and so there was a real pushback against any kind of multifamily sort of things, but there's a handful of these developers that do these. I mean, and they have to get really good at it because there's so much paperwork involved, so much regulation, so much oversight on it. But anyway, they you know, sold it to the city council, and the way they explained it was, this is where your cops and teachers would live, because it was that 40 to 60% range, you know. So.
Is median income per person or household?
Median, well, in this case, I think it may be household. Yeah. The number that comes from the Census Bureau is household.
The average salary, the average income is different. Average is different from the median.
Right.
The average income in Blount County is not quite $25,000.
You take everybody's income and dump it into a pile, and you pull the one out of the middle, that's the median.
That's median.
So that takes all the top, all the bottom.
He mentioned 55,000, he showed on Google 46,000. So somewhere between 46 and 55. That's amazing.
Now we talk about the mode. Now people want to get it the mode either, right? You got the medium and then mode. You got the range.
I can't remember what mode it was.
Most frequently occurring number in the,
So it makes you wonder,
That's why I was a history major. I didn't like all that crap.
it makes you wonder why these boxes, a lot of them are rented for $700 a month.
well, apparently there's not enough of that available then.
Yeah, that's.
Or they don't know, I'm not aware of that, people are not aware.
I assumed it like stuff there behind Lowe's. I assumed it was 900 a month. Mm-hmm.
That'd be dangerous living that close to the wall.
Well, if you don't have a 2-bedroom apartment, you don't need it. Okay, adjourn? All in favor?